Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. I'm your host, 𝗂𝗂𝗧𝗏 with Contractor Staffing Source, where we help residential contractors build great teams. My co-host today, CEO and founder of the company, Paul Sanneman.
Hi,
Our special guest today is Todd Krause, and you are coming from 𝗙ecie Consulting. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. Talking to you here from Indiana, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Go ahead and tell us about your company and what you do.
What I'm doing at the moment is showing small cleaning companies how to grow. I'm giving them the tools and the techniques that launch and really propel their growth. What I found is if you wrap the right culture around your processes and your systems, then all of a sudden you will get some amazing results. And the productivity from your teams just soars. That's really the driver.
So what does the right culture look like?
It flips a few things that we're probably accustomed to in the daily world 180 degrees. Here's a couple of quick examples. Most businesses in the world around us tends to operate with a lot of don't do this and don't do that. And there's all these signs saying, this is off limits, that's off limits. And by the way, here's the consequences if you don't listen.
Right.
So early on when I took over the business, I told the managers, stop doing that. Just stop. Tell them what we want. Tell them what we need to deliver to the customers, and tell them what the rewards are when they do deliver it. So we got rid of everything that said no and don't and off limits, and we started saying, please do this, and when you do this, and when the customer is happy, guess what? These are the rewards that are waiting for you and the benefits.
Can you give me an example of what that actually looks like?
Sure. So we base a lot of the rewards and benefits on a few criteria, things that we need in order to make the business function. We need them to show up. We need them to bring a good attitude. We need them to be willing to help other people on the team or other teams. And of course, the most important thing is we have to deliver quality work consistently. So we measure those things and we give them points for that. So we start out with this point system, and then with the points, they could buy prizes, or if they accumulated enough points, because they could get up to 50 points per week, they could buy themselves a raise. Like, real cool. I mean, usually you wait for the boss to go, oh, it's been a year, and the company's done so, and we talked about it at a senior level, and we can give you a few more bucks. But we flipped it around and said, well, you can earn a raise. You can accumulate your points by delivering what our customers need, and you can buy a raise because you get somebody showing up consistently week after week after week and performing. I mean, that's huge. That just does great things for the business and for the customers who just go away happy with the work that you've done. So that's literally how we've done it. And then we've attached one other thing to it, which is sort of an all or nothing. If you come in and you're grumpy and you won't help anybody and you're just letting the world know that you're in a sour mood, I'm sorry, no points this week. That doesn't work. It drags everybody down. You can't be taking a sour attitude out to the customers.
Go ahead,
Kai.
So would you say your main focus is we build teams, but your main focus is keeping teams together, it sounds like.
It works on a team building level, but it really does, once you build that team, it keeps them together. And it changes the whole culture inside the company because you stop saying no and you say, please do this. And when you do, this is what happens and what the benefits are. If I go back and give you a little.
Yeah, give me an example.
When I took over, the place was negative. And there was turnover among the teams that was really high. The customers weren't staying very long. You almost had to wonder how they grew to the size they were when I bought the company. The managers later admitted that they themselves were thinking about leaving. Every morning was a routine where the teams would line up outside the office of the managers, and one team after another would get a lecture about what went wrong the day before. Once we flipped the culture around and changed it, that's done. We haven't done that in years. Teams come in, they're smiling, they're laughing, they get their equipment, they get their marching orders for the day, and they're out the door.
Now, I would say compared to other businesses, the cleaning business has got to be really hard because you're dealing with, for lack of a better term, you're not dealing with electricians and plumbers, and you're dealing with non-trained labor, right? And you're training them. So you're sort of at the beginnings of people getting hired. It's not like you've got somebody who's been on a job for 10 years, right? So you were able to take I'm going to call it a beginning culture and make those kids or guys who ever show up really want to work there, right?
You can say that about the cleaning business, but this is no different than what I've ever done when I built Trident Financial Services to $2 billion. And we were talking highly trained, highly skilled financial people. Or when I built a division for ABN AMRO LaSalle Bank to $14 billion. It's what I've always applied in the world of business in the different worlds we've worked on. Whether it was the private equity or the venture capital deals that we worked on, that's simply the way I ran my division, my department. And when it was my company and my name was on the door, just the way I ran it.
So let's say somebody's got a remodeling company, got 10 employees, all right, and they're like on a 1 to 10, they're all a 6. They're not quite performing the way I'd like to perform. If you came into that remodeling company, what changes would you make in order to get from a 6 to a 10?
To get from a 6 to a 10, first of all, we're going to take a look at what is the inside the walls of the company. What's the culture there? How does the ownership and management that's there relate to these employees? And what type of relationship do we have? We want to fix that right away. I'll give you an actual real world example.
Okay.
Managers literally referred to the cleaners as the children and treated them like misbehaving children. It always had to be disciplined. And I said, stop. We don't do that. We don't treat people that way. We treat them with respect. We treat them with dignity. If they choose to behave badly, we're not going to get down to that level. We're going to lift them up and raise them up to our level. I knew that they internalized it and they had made the change when they changed their language and they stopped referring to them, talking about them like they were children, and started calling them the ladies. And when their language switched and said, how do we support them so that they can deliver what we promised to our customers? That changing that internal dynamic is very important because it flows right out into once the teams leave and go out to the job site, it flows right out to the job site with them. And if they don't feel respected and they don't feel like they're valued, then they take a so-so, I'm just here for the money, I'm living for Friday and my paycheck type of attitude with them. I'm going to bang a few things together. It's going to be okay. It's going to pass inspection. But if they're taking a great attitude out there, all of a sudden they've got some bounce in their step. They're getting more done. They simply are more productive to begin with. And what they do produce is higher quality. You're going to have a lot less rework. You're going to have a lot less complaints later from the customers. Well, this isn't quite right, and that's off a little, and it could have been lined up better. It's those types of bringing a good attitude just elevates the quality. It reduces your cost.
So let's say we've got the average, I don't know, remodeling contractor, got 10 people. I always say resurrection is harder than birth. So how do you recognize what the culture is and then identify what you can do to shift the culture and actually make those changes? Because you sound like you've done it. That sounds like really good advice. How do you actually do it?
Oh, yes. You start with listening to just how the conversations go and how they're talking to each other. That's one huge clue right there. The other thing is looking around to see what sort of things they've got hanging on the walls. Because more often than not, in most companies, it's a warning sign. If you do this, here's what's going to happen and what the penalties are, rather than a sign saying, when you do the following, here's the benefits that are waiting for you. You don't need all the negative, don't do this, don't do that signage, or those lectures and team meetings if you've gone the other direction and said, when you do the following, then you get raises, you get bonuses, you get compensation in some form.
So if you're going to shift the culture, which I think is an awesome idea, how do you, my guess is the first thing that the employees are going to say is, oh, I wonder what seminar I went to. I mean, we've all been there, right? Like, he comes out, oh, we're going to change everything. Yeah, right. I've heard that story 1,000 times, right? So how do you show them you're serious?
You have to walk the talk. It's more than just saying this stuff. It's doing it and following through. And yes, when I've shifted the culture in the past, there was that brief period of, do they really mean it or are they just saying it?
Right.
But I'm telling you, when you hand out those first couple of bonuses and you say, George did a great job, thank you, here's your reward, everybody else starts to go, oh, I want that. And they very quickly get on board. When you put the money where the mouth is and do it in public, so everybody can see you, they get on board real quick.
So when you go into a company and say you're doing it, you can't do it personally, you're doing it on the phone, how do you assess the culture before you make the changes?
There's just a lot of, believe it or not, when you talk to the owners and you listen to them describe their problems and the way they talk about their problems and about their people, there's a whole trail of clues right there.
Like if they say, I can't find any good employees, or my employees are marginal, or, there's Susie, but Susie's always late. And so you're right. You can tell by that language, whether it's negative or, hey, I got the best team on the planet. These people are absolutely amazing. I don't know how we found them, but they're incredible. It's a whole different conversation, right?
It is a whole different conversation. People who start off saying, what happened to all the good employees? Where did they all go? Well, they've just hung a huge label on everybody out there and said, you're all just mediocre or lousy. And what happened to the good people? It's the good people are right in front of you.
Like in our company, we have like zero turnover rates happening. I think that's because we acknowledge that when we find people that actually work for us, they're really special. I mean, they're like the 1 out of 100. They're amazing. So the fact that we're hiring them means they've been chosen because they're amazing. And I think that sort of carries on.
And the way you're talking about them tells me that you value them and you respect them. The way you talk to them on a daily basis, I can just imagine that just flows through in your conversations with them on a daily basis. How you talk through and problem solve. Is problem solving flow down this path of, well, here we are in a situation, what are we going to do about it? Or does it go down an alternate path as whose fault it is and who to blame, and do that for 10 minutes before we get to what are we going to do about it?
Right.
So in my experience, a lot of coaches, they jump straight to the numbers. And I like how you're just focusing on the employees and keeping that positive culture, positive and incentivizing. I really like that.
Now, one of the things I've had, and you can help me with here, Todd, is incentivizing. So I think the point system is great. So you do things like if they get Google reviews, if the person comes back positive, if, you can look for all the positive signs of employee behavior, and then you attach points to that, and then people get clearly rewarded quickly for what they're doing, right?
We do. And since that point system, we layered on, interesting that you mentioned the Google reviews, because we asked the customers how it was. If they say it was a great job, the cleaners get money on their next paycheck, $10 on their next paycheck. If that customer goes to Google and writes a positive review, they get $15 more on their next paycheck. So it's immediate and it's a known amount. And that buys 5 things. I get cleaner loyalty. The cleaners tell other people what a great place it is to work. We spend nothing, I mean nothing, advertising for help. We have people walking in asking to work there. We have a wait list. That leads to happy customers which stay, and they give us referrals. And then number 5 is huge. You can't beat word of mouth advertising when Susie writes a great review about what a wonderful job your company did and says, by the way, George and Jim were fantastic to have on the job. It's personal, it gets attention, it rises to the top, and it's powerful.
I can reinforce that because we have a great team. We have no turnover. They're amazing people, but we never used to reward Google reviews. And we said, well, let's give the team, $100 every time I get a Google review. We've gone from 1 Google review a month to 5 a week just by doing that.
It works. They get excited about it. It brings up something else in that motivates people. It gives them control that they wouldn't normally have. If you say, well, you're going to get $100 a week pay, go out and do this work, well, all they expect is $100. Well, now all of a sudden, if I get a Google review for the company, I can earn additional pay. Now I have some control over my compensation. It creates an alignment from the top to the bottom. If we want to think about customers at the top, ownership, management layer, and then the people who do the work. It's an imperfect alignment, but it aligns with what the customer wants. Because the customer is going to always say to you, you promised the following result. And now we're saying to the people who do the work, when you deliver that result, and the customer says, you got it, it was good, money. How huge is that?
That's huge. So, this is definitely a different approach than a lot of coaches, and I like it because it's working with culture, and it's not just a bunch of numbers, because ultimately, all work is done by people, right? And if the people are happy and motivated, it works. If people aren't happy and aren't motivated, it doesn't work. So if people want to this is great. If people want to get a hold of you and hear about how you can help their company, how do they do that?
You can reach me several different ways. If you go to www.𝗙CEH𝗫𝗁, that by the way is SUN, consulting.com, my full contact number, information, email, and my personal cell phone number is on the website there. You can call me directly.
Great. Cool. Well, I've listened to a lot of coaches, and this is definitely different, huh, Kai? Normally, we've got these systems and we've got these systems. And unfortunately, a lot of coaching companies focus on numbers and not people, which is not, because people create the numbers don't create the people, obviously. So, Todd, this has been very informative. And I would say, if your team is not performing the way you want it to perform, I think Todd can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate being here.
Appreciate it,
Thank you, Todd.
Bye.